listening to RIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out RIARadio.com.
In 2021 was when I was thinking about going back to work full time, and then realizing that I had a pretty good setup. I had a lot of flexibility, and I liked being able to pick my kids up from school, and I liked being able to go on a run in the middle of the day. And I didn't really want to go back to like a 50 to 60 hour a week job. And so I was like, why don't I just ramp up and do my own thing with the real estate investments?
This episode is brought to you by PropStream.com.
PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
Welcome to RIA Radio with Kaydee Myers.
Kaydee, welcome to the show, and thanks for clearing up the debate that Ted and I had about where you're actually located, which is you're in the Washington, D.C. market, right?
Yes.
That's hotbed of legal and political activity. So this is going to be fun to dive into that. But I wanted to lead off with a question for you of, in your experience as now your legal career, you have specialized specifically in real estate, correct? Within the legal realm.
That's right. I did big commercial real estate development work.
Okay, perfect. So what has been an example of one of the biggest screw-ups you have seen in a real estate transaction? And what happened with it? How could that have been, prevented? Or maybe, could we talk through an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I see is that people's leases are horrible. And especially I've seen big property managers use really bad leases. And my first property manager wanted to use their own lease, and it was so long, so detailed, but then also missing a ton of items. And so I finally found a property manager that would actually let me use my own lease. So I use my own lease now. But a lot of, I think people are using just documents that just don't cover all the bases and also have so much mumbo jumbo that doesn't make any sense in them. So, sometimes it doesn't really matter, but then the one time it does matter, it's a big problem.
Kaydee, do you sell that lease out?
I don't. I think I usually just give it to people. If they ask. I haven't put all my stuff, I haven't monetized all of my value like some people are very good at doing.
If you were going to look at a lease, let's say it's a residential rental lease, is there a common thing that you find? Because, I'll say this too, my leases are completely ripped off from other property management companies, stuff that I've had, and I just kind of repurpose it, maybe put my name at the, my LLC name at the top of it and so forth. But I really have never had.
Katie's cringing right now.
Yeah, I know.
That.
That's why I'm bringing this up, is because what is maybe some common things in a lease that are gotchas or stuff that isn't included that should be, or vice versa, that you've seen?
I think one is that people use a lease that ended up being from a different state. So landlord-tenant law is super specific. And so, anyone can just go to the state statute and pull up their landlord-tenant law, and your eviction and a lot of your security deposit and how rent is paid is set by state statute. So you probably should just copy and paste from your state statute those provisions. You shouldn't try to if the state gives you 5 days to pay rent, don't make yours 3 and don't make it 7. That's just going to cause problems later on. So I think, people do that a lot, where they don't realize that there's actually a lot of laws already governing things. So where it should just comply with state statute. Now, sometimes in the state statutes, it says like, unless the contract says otherwise, and then you do have license to kind of maybe make yours stricter. And so you can do that. But I think, timing on paying rent and eviction proceedings is pretty set in the state statute, and a judge is not going to let you change that a bunch.
I'm glad we're actually talking about this because in the state of Nebraska, and I don't know exactly when this happened, Ted, maybe you do offhand, but they changed at some point. The notice period went from 3 days to 7 days for non-payment of rent. Mm-hmm. And who pays attention to that, right? It's not like, as a Joe Blow real estate investor, you're not out on LexisNexis searching all of the latest legal stuff that's been passed or legislation that's gone through. So I think that's a good tip, though, is to make sure you have at least, maybe annually or maybe every couple of years, make sure that the key components of a leasing agreement haven't changed substantially, where if you think you're good and you get your eviction filed, or if that's what you're doing, and you're ready to go to court, and then all of a sudden the judge throws it out because you didn't file a 7-day notice, you filed a 3-day notice, and that changed over the last few years and you didn't realize it. That could cost you a lot of money. It could cost you time, more legal difficulty, fines, something like that. So I just wanted to bring that up as an example. You're the perfect person for it with your background.
Yeah, I think an annual review of a lease is a good idea with the state statute. The laws change every year.
Yeah, one thing too that I've noticed in particular from state to state, and you being from, and we'll talk about this, kind of your roots originally, you being from Nebraska, correct? Mm-hmm. You're in our neck of the woods. One thing that I've seen, we're kind of a border town, more or less. We're really close to Iowa, the Iowa-Nebraska border, and I own properties in both places. Ted, I know you've transacted a lot of real estate on both sides, correct?
Yeah, I'm not licensed in Iowa, so mainly everything I've done is right here in Omaha.
Oh, so okay. Get with it, man. Yeah. Get your reciprocation. So, but I think it's interesting because both states can vary a lot, and I've seen investors use one lease or one legal agreement, purchase agreement, try and use it for both states, and that can get you into some trouble. One thing in particular, in just the big picture here, when you have somebody renting a place from you, is disposition of abandoned property. I've run into this a lot over the years, where you'll get a tenant that maybe they bailed and just left in the middle of the night, and you've got a whole bunch of stuff in their house. Or like I've actually had abandoned cars that have happened, and I would like, what do I do with this, right? And in Iowa, it's way different than Nebraska, and in multiple other states. I'm sure DC and like New York and more tenant friendly states, quote unquote, are probably going to be more strict about what you can actually do with tenants' belongings. So I don't know. Those are just two examples of things that I'm thinking of that can be gotchas that can really cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, and that tenant disposition of property is also in the state statute, and it's very set out step by step what to do. So that's kind of one of those things where it's just better to just follow exactly what that state statute tells you to do.
Yeah. Now, you are based out of DC. You spent some time in Boulder, it looks like. Got your JD from University of Colorado. Boo. Being a state. And you got your undergrad from KU, is that
yes,
right?
That's
right. Okay, a little light stalking. I came up with your professional LinkedIn profile here. And now, what led you to specialize from when you got your law degree? Why did you decide to dive into real estate instead of going into say litigation or corporate attorney or some type of that type of flavor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when I was in law school, that was 2005 to 2008, and Denver was booming, and it was a really fun time to live. I lived in Boulder during law school, but then in 2008 I moved to Denver, and I lived there till 2017. So it was just construction everywhere, and especially like downtown oriented construction and kind of the central city. So I lived right in the middle of it, and I just saw it going on, and I just thought it was really cool. I thought it was really interesting. I've always loved kind of old neighborhoods and historic homes. So when people were actually starting to put money into those areas and reinvesting in those areas, I loved that. So I kind of started pursuing that, and then I got hired by a law firm that focused on real estate. So even the litigators at that law firm did kind of real estate litigation. And it's a Denver-based law firm, but it was kind of a boutique law firm in that we only did real estate matters. So we did some really cool deals in Denver, and then like mountain towns, and nationwide as well.
Katie, you mentioned the historic homes, and I recently sat with a gentleman named Paul Vacheski here in town, and we had a whole long conversation. He had a 100+ unit portfolio, got sued because of some lead-based paint situation where there was a property. He said there's no time limit where he could be sued for lead-based paint. The 5 owners of that property, from the kid getting lead-based paint in I think it was late 2018, 2019. To a property he didn't own for 7 or 8 years at that time. He was brought into a lawsuit with 5 other people because and he had disclosures in that during the remodel process there wasn't a lead-based paint certified contractor that he could prove, and so he ended up doing a buyout of that one for like $20,000. But the couple people that did stay in it ended up paying about $160,000 just in legal fees on that deal. Wow. Obviously, that really scares me. And he sold his whole portfolio because it's all pre-1978 because of that. Now, doing historic homes, has that ever been a concern to you, or is there things that you do to counteract up with dealing with that?
Yeah. I also live in an old home, so looking around right now. But most of the homes I've bought have been painted like several times. So the surface layer that people are breathing in is not lead-based paint. And so, I think when you really get into the issue is when you are disturbing that. And so it sounds like maybe that's what was happening is he did some renovation and that was disturbed. And I've never.
But you get it way before him.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard of something like that happening, to be honest. It's hard to know without, knowing, like, did he say there was no lead-based paint, but he knew there was? Because most of the properties, you sign that disclosure, you don't know 100% if there is lead-based paint. If it's pre-1978, there could be, and everyone just kind of signs that disclosure, like you do with a lot of things in life. So I think if I ever was like renovating, I would definitely, watch that. But I think a lot of people live in these houses that it's under several layers and it's not, a huge problem in that respect. I think it's really a problem when something's being renovated.
That's good tips. Everything I have is pre-1978. Even I think my newest property I own besides my personal home is 1901. Right. And so, but they were all condemned and I did massive renovations on all of them. And a lot of them, all the walls were even taken out. So, I feel like I'm less scared about that, and I've always had my soils all tested or remediated to kind of protect myself. But I mean, it really opened my eyes when I heard this, and I'm definitely going to have
that is eye-opening. I know. I'd love to know what lots of it's knowledge based, like if he knew something was an issue and didn't disclose it, kind of thing. There's so many different factors, I guess, for why he actually got in trouble for that.
And you just mentioned historic, so I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, well, there's so many problems in historic homes, but I do still love them.
Hey, fun fact for you. In about, I think 2008, 9-ish, when I was kind of just getting into real estate investing, in the city of Omaha, there was a lead or a battery plant that was located kind of near the downtown area, which is close to the Missouri River. And what they found is after that plant went away, the soil and a lot of soil in the surrounding area was contaminated with lead. So this isn't what you would typically find. What we've been talking about up until this point on this podcast is homes that were built with paint that included, lead as an additive. I don't know what the reason is, probably durability or whatever, but that has caused a lot of problems with, birth defects and brain damage and so forth, especially for children. But this, the lead plant or the lead in the soil that was from this battery plant resulted in the EPA coming in and creating a Superfund site in around the eastern part of Omaha, and they pumped basically, I don't know what the number is, but it had a B on it, billions of dollars that was available basically to get lead remediated. in both soil and homes and so forth. So during that time, I kind of went down this rabbit hole of how do I test? Like, how do I get certified to test for lead paint? And they have a course that you go through, and you can get basically a lead-based paint certification to do testing. And then there's a whole other one for remediation work. I was interested in the testing, and they have this gun. Do you know this, Ted? So they have this gun, and it's called it's an XRF gun, and I don't remember the exact terminology, but it's like X-ray fluorescence gun, where you can more or less point it at a wall or a windowsill or a door, and it will register the content of the percentage of lead in that substance, right?
Sounds expensive.
Yeah. and at the time, and here's where I'm going with this. At the time, that gun itself, and you had to keep it in which is ironic, you had to keep it, I think, like a lead-lined case to carry it around. You know how they do that in dentist's office? You got to put on the lead apron or whatever to keep the x-rays from penetrating your body. So you actually have to get, since it's technically radioactive, you have to go through all this certification and with the government and so forth. Like, it's a whole thing just to go around and point this gun to find out if there's lead paint in something. Isn't that crazy?
That is silly.
Yeah. So anyway, that's one of my $1 million businesses that I never ended up doing anything.
Well, and Omaha is going around and replacing all the lead pipes. I don't know if you guys heard that. And the EPA is putting a lot of money towards that. So I think that's great. You know, I think the lead pipes is not an issue that just like homeowners can solve on their own. So that needs to kind of be like a huge nationwide solution, because they're kind of everywhere, and anything that, when we use lead when we didn't know it was a problem.
You know what really sucks about that is, like, our whole infrastructure in the US is decaying, over time. Like, bridges that are under major disrepair, and they're throwing Band-Aids on them. They're probably, I don't know what the stat is on it, but I want to say it was like 80% of bridges in the US are not technically safe. Because they haven't been properly reinforced, or they've eroded over time. But it's so freaking expensive to rebuild infrastructure, especially like sewer lines.
Pittsburgh is the worst, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, the worst anywhere in the country.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they come up with the money to do these programs that are desperately needed. It's like the squeaky wheel seems to be how politicians handle budget expenditures. I did want to ask you, have you ever seen any well-known politician cases come across your desk? Have you ever participated in one from a real estate perspective, maybe rhyming with frump or something like that?
No, it is funny that he's also a real estate investor, because I hope those are the end of our similarities. But yeah, no, I have not. I practiced law from 2008 to like 2015, and that was all in Denver. And so I never got involved. I haven't gotten my license like in DC. You can just waive in. So it's like on my to-do list, but I still am licensed in Colorado. So I do legal work for myself. And then I don't really do legal work anymore, but a lot of the real estate stuff relates to it.
How much of a pain is it to keep your license active when you're practicing attorney?
It's kind of a pain. Colorado has a CLE, like continuing legal education requirement. And it's every 3 years. And of course you're supposed to do like a little bit each year, but I do it all in like the last 6 months of the year that my thing is due to be renewed. And I actually listen to a lot of stuff. So you can listen to these courses that are accredited. I do like to learn more about kind of random issues. So I don't really mind it, but yeah, it's something I've gone back and forth. Like, should I keep doing this? But it's easy enough to keep doing, but it is a little bit of a pain.
Do you ever look back on your educational path? So you got your undergrad degree, 3 more years of law school, I would assume. So you're 7 years into your secondary education, and then like you just bailed on that to become a full-time real estate investor, even though you still hold your license.
Yeah.
Do you ever look back and be like, why did I do that for 7 years? Or are you like glad and it actually helps you your investing?
Yeah, no, I actually did. I liked law school, and I was definitely not ready to join like the workforce after I graduated from college. And so law school was a great experience for me. And I think it's really a cool way to learn about how the world works. You know, you learn a lot about how the political system works, just how, contracts work and how the legal system works that I think a lot of people don't know. And it's not like a mystery, but I think, you just haven't learned it. So I use that kind of stuff pretty frequently, I think. And then I use it in the real estate work. And I will say, I have a lot of people, like young people, ask me, like, should I go to law school? And sometimes I want to say no, because, I didn't also like being a lawyer. So why go to law school if you don't even want to be a lawyer? But I do think it set me up really well to invest in real estate. My husband and I were both lawyers. We were double income, no kids for several years. And we were able to buy a home and kind of a couple investment properties and really set ourselves up for life. And, as a young professional, like being a lawyer is one of I think the most high paying jobs. And sometimes, I think it's hard to get into real estate without some, money to enter the market.
Yeah, no, good point. Now, when you first started working in your original law firm, were you doing like 80 hours a week and they're like, okay, associates, see you tomorrow morning, and like they, all the partners bail and you're there till midnight? Is that how that went? Did it
Yeah.
suck or yeah, pretty much?
So I worked at a smaller firm. So I never worked at like the 80-hour a week firms. I probably worked 50 or 60 hours a week fairly often. But here's the sad thing about being a lawyer is the partners don't bail. They work just as much. Like you work a ton your whole life. And that's
so you see your future sitting right in front of you.
Yeah, they're working just as much, if not more. But yeah, I thought it was a grind. I did not enjoy being a lawyer. There were parts of it I liked, but most of those parts were not the actual legal work. And I think I worked at one of like the better firms, like better work-life balance. And I worked with a lot of good people. And so when people are like, should I go to law school? I'm like, oh, I don't know if you want to sign up for that for life. But I do think, there's so many lawyers out there and you can do a lot of different things.
Sure. Yeah. There's so many different flavors. It's like real estate investing. I mean, you could be triple net leases. You could do residential. You could do commercial. Yeah. There's like all different flavors of it in the legal field. Now, how did you, like, maybe you could describe for us what your first foray into actually buying an investment property was. Like, what did that look like? Where did you buy it? Maybe if you remember any of the numbers, that'd be cool too.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about my second one, only because our first one was, which is kind of a fun story, but our first one was my husband's bachelor pad that he had bought in 2006. And he actually bought it for 0% down. So he got a first mortgage for like the actual mortgage and then the second mortgage for the down payment. And he was not even a lawyer yet. He was studying for the bar exam. So they, this is 2006. They just gave him some money.
That was my very first purchase, was an 80-20 one.
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly. So, and his law firm wrote a letter and it said, Chris Myers will be a lawyer at our firm in the fall if he passes the bar exam. And the lender was like, great, sounds good.
They're like, whatever. Here we go.
Yeah. So but it was right by Coors Field, really cool area. But it was tiny and we both worked late and I didn't want to walk there late at night alone. So but this was 2009 and the recession had hit. So it wasn't worth probably as much as he paid for it. So we decided to keep it and rent it out. And then we actually rented our own place. So it's kind of like an even exchange. And then we eventually paid off that second mortgage and we kept that a while, but we never really made a ton of money on that one. We kind of broke even and then we made a little bit when we sold it. So we weren't really like doing the math on that. We were just kind of like hanging on to it till we didn't lose money.
You didn't know you're a real estate investor yet.
No, I was like, but the origin of my form is another lawyer at my firm that had a little investment property and it was her form. So I took her form and then made it mine. So that we used it for that. And that was like the easiest investment property to have. Like we never had problems. So we were like, this is easy. So the first one I like did some analysis on when I decided to leave the law firm. When I was like, I'm going to spend more time with my kids. I have almost 10-year-old twins, and my kids were about 1 then. And I had tried to go part-time at the law firm, and it just didn't really work out. It wasn't what I wanted. So I decided to quit, but I wanted to do kind of something, with, my education and my skills and my brain. So I said, I've been looking around, and we own this property, and we really only break even. And I've been looking at other properties, and we can definitely make $500 a month if we sell it and then we buy a different property. And so that's just what we did. And that was my goal. Like we maybe made a couple hundred every other month, here and there on the first one. So the second one, I said, I want a $500 cushion. And this was about $250,000 property. And so
Is this also in the Denver market?
Yes. So this is all Denver. Okay. And this is Denver 2015, which is kind of,
there were still $200,000 properties back then.
Yeah. I bought a property for, I think it was like 240, and it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in Park Hill Park Hill, which is a nice neighborhood.
It's $1 million now.
It's about 500 now. Okay. And I sold it for 400, and that's when I bought all the properties in Omaha. Yeah. So that was my goal, $500 a month cushion. I was not running cash flow. I was not running, anything else. But we did that, and I thought that was great. And it was a cute little yellow house, and we rented it to a nurse and a med school student, and they were like the best tenants ever. They're still probably the best tenants I've ever had. So that was great. And I really liked that. And so then I did that. And then I started looking, I kind of did the same thing. I started looking at Omaha saying, okay, for $250,000 in Denver, I can make $500 a month. But in Omaha, I could probably make way more than that for this, what I have in this $250,000 property.
What was and these were single families, your first purchases, is that right?
So my husband's, bachelor pad was a condo, and then this was a single family. Yep.
What point did you decide to transition into small multifamilies?
Kind of along the way, we picked up a single family in Omaha, because I started seeing so basically in Omaha, I could buy a property for a little less than $150,000 and still make $500 a month. So in Denver, it was a $250,000 property, and in Omaha, it was a $150,000 property. So we picked another single family up along the way. But in 2021 was when I was thinking about going back to work full time, and then realizing that I had a pretty good setup. I had a lot of flexibility, and I liked being able to pick my kids up from school, and I liked being able to go on a run in the middle of the day. And I didn't really want to go back to like a 50 to 60 hour a week job. And so I was like, why don't I just ramp up and do my own thing with the real estate investments? So that's in 2021 when I decided to sell the Denver house that had appreciated so much and buy multiple rentals in Omaha.
What does your portfolio look like right now?
So I have 10 units, and it's 3 single family homes, a duplex, and a 5-unit. And
do you have any in Denver still, investment properties, or are they all in Omaha?
I don't. Yeah, they're all in Omaha.
Oh, okay. I thought
yeah.
Nice. For some reason, I thought you were spread out even more.
No, okay, I sold Denver to buy Omaha.
Okay, let's do this. If you are living in a city like you are located hours and hours away, well, I mean, it's technically an hour and 20-minute flight or hour and 30-minute flight to
it's like
Omaha.
It's like, but I'm in DC, so it's 2.5.
Gotcha. Now, how do you go about this? So let's say you're like, all right, I've identified Omaha. It was my old hometown. I think, cash flow is going to be better there. There's, things I like about the city. I would assume you still have some connections here, but like, what does that look like if someone wants to start, they've got a good base under them and they're ready to roll with capital and buying in a different city? What do we do? Like, coach me on how I can go about doing what you've done in Omaha, buying 10 units while you're living, halfway across the country.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's really helpful to be from Omaha and to have family still there. So I'm there a couple times a year. the biggest reason it's so helpful is because if I see a property online, I know what the area is like. I'm a huge fan of Zillow. I use Zillow like all the time. And if I see a property, I know what that area is like. I think it would be really hard to pull up, let's say Kansas City, and just see a property online. It looks really nice, but just have really no idea what the area around it is like. And part of my investment strategy is I love like walkable urban areas. And so that's where I want to buy. And so those are very often like pretty micro communities, really. I want that little main street that has like a couple cute shops and bars and restaurants walkable. And so I don't really know that about other market like metro areas. So I think at least like if you've, visited a lot, an area, I can't really imagine picking just cold a market and deciding to invest there. I know people do that, but I wouldn't recommend it.
I remember when we were talking originally, when we were looking for some properties, that you made a couple comments that you liked the properties that were around the medical areas, and that you liked areas that used to be on the old streetcar lines. Mm-hmm. Is that still kind of like your buying model?
I do. I still love the old streetcar suburbs. In Denver, we personally lived right near one, and then I think most of my properties in Omaha are like that. And I'm a big fan of the Omaha streetcar. I know there's some mixed feelings about that. But I mean, it'll be great for my properties, and I think it'll be great for Omaha. I think, Omaha could be is a great city, and it could be, an even cooler city. And I think the streetcar could help that. But, so but the theory of streetcar suburbs was that, people would, walk to the streetcar stop, and there would be a laundromat and a little shop, and I don't know what else they needed at that time, because this was probably 1930s, but it was like a web. And so they made these little neighborhoods really walkable, because they could walk and get kind of their daily needs met there. And so a lot of those buildings are still there, and they have little neighborhoods around them. And obviously like Blackstone and areas in Omaha are coming back like that. And so that is just, for me, definitely a sign that could be, is kind of an up and coming area.
Totally agree with that.
Does your husband still practice?
Yes, he does. He's he's in-house at a big company. And he has that W-2 job that all the lenders like to see. So yeah.
And also tech support on the podcast.
Yes. That you do. And tech support. Yes,
he briefly popped on screen and helped us get the audio video taken care of on her end. So
yes, well, and he has cool, fancy new headphones, and I don't care, so I've been using old ones that don't have microphones. So I had to borrow his.
Yeah. All right, now, Kaydee, what do you guys see ahead of you? You mentioned you sold your Denver property or properties that had a good chunk of equity in it that helped you leverage your way into buying 10 units in Omaha. What's next for you guys? Are you going to continue buying? Are you going to try and optimize what you have? Or what's the future look like for the Myers household?
Yeah, I think we want to buy a few more. But I'm very like slow and steady. So I've bought a property like every other year, and I don't plan to, go crazy at any time. My big goal probably is still, I'd like to maybe have, 20 doors in Omaha, and then a beach house and a ski condo. And then I'd be pretty set, I think. I don't have,
I want exactly what you want to.
Yeah. I don't have like, I don't have kind of, I want to be a billionaire, or like I want to have so much real estate that that seems overwhelming to me. I'm definitely more in just building a small portfolio. I definitely want them all to be, kind of, safe, healthy places to live. I like them to be cute. Like I like them to be historic, charming properties. So, my aspirations are kind of to contribute in that way, and not necessarily it's about just creating this 1 million doors and tons of wealth.
Yeah. Are you doing renovations on a lot of these properties that you buy, or are you looking for something that's more turnkey?
Ted, I feel like you know from looking at some properties with me, like light renovations, but sometimes it turns into a little bit more. The property I just bought, I saw it. It was a for sale by owner, and it's hard to tell Ted this, but I just bought it on my own. I didn't use a broker. So I just bought one this summer.
I do that sometimes.
So it was great though, because the paint was like peeling off on the outside, but the inside was fine. Like the inside was great. So I bought it, and then they actually put a new roof on it and a new air conditioner for me on it because they ended up failing in the inspection, and we painted it, and it's super cute. And so I like to do just like, I don't take on a full scale renovation because I'm not there, but I often replace the appliances. I put in stainless steel appliances because, I feel like you buy a lot of old homes and they have like a weird set of appliances, and stainless steel appliances make tenants happy. So I just do little things.
For the record, Katie's been working with my mom on a lot of real estate transactions, and Katie's actually my mom's favorite kind of client to work with.
Oh, that's nice.
And she's like, and she even, I was calling her this morning to tell her that we're going to interview, and she was so excited. And she's like, just thank her for dealing with all my crazy videos, because my mom goes see his properties, and she does these videos at the properties, and she'll just talk about anything and everything.
What's your mom's handle on Instagram?
She doesn't have an Instagram.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll change that.
Mo Albers is what she is on Facebook, though.
Katie, what like when you're looking at properties, I heard you mention $500 of cash flow is a metric that you kind of have used at some point along the way. Is that tried and true? Have you changed how you look at what your evaluation criteria are when you're looking at potential investments, or about the same?
Yeah, it's funny that has actually still served me pretty well. I think I used that for my first one because that just kind of made sense to me, and that was the goal. But it didn't necessarily work like numbers wise. But now, if the property is under about $200,000, if I can have a $500 a month cushion, that's worked pretty well. And that's actually about what I have on the one I just bought. So I do now run, a lot more fun little numbers in my Excel spreadsheet. And I always my goal is a 10% cash on cash return, which is pretty tough to get. But, that on this one is about a $500 a month as well. So, and it's more like a back of napkin test. It's like, mortgage, property insurance, and taxes, and then maybe like 50 to $100, in maintenance or property management a month. Obviously there's going to be other things that happen and that kind of thing, and vacancy. I don't take that into account. So it's just like a very quick kind of back of the napkin. Do I make over 500 with the basics?
Katie, I have recently run into two situations here in Omaha recently where there's properties that I'm trying to sell, and the clients had the rental inspections done. And upon the rental inspections, one of the properties, the gentleman bought it originally and didn't touch anything in the basement, but come to find out that there was a fully finished lower unit or basement, and for running plumbing, they decided to jackhammer the floor and run all the lines into a broken hole into the main line, going into the drain.
A broken hole?
What
do you mean?
They jackhammered a hole into the concrete through the main sewer pipe, and then have all the water lines just dropping into it, and then they put a box over it to conceal it. So that
what's wrong with that?
Yeah. So to touch that plumbing would require that the whole place is condemned, and $35,000 to $40,000 renovation of plumbing renovation plus all the work it would entail. Had another transaction where it was a triplex for sale, fully renovated. Thought that things were done right, and he was now a state investor. The contractor did not do everything in code, used different types of water lines. And now he's got a property put over $90,000 in the renovation, and all three units need to be vacated. And they're making all the walls get torn up. There's no physical issues, but since there's different types of, it's either got PEX or it's got copper lines connected together. and they didn't pull permits on this. They're now requiring all 3 units be vacated, and now we have a $32,000 repair to get done that was unplanned on a property that I had a contract on to sell. And so there's 2 situations in 1 week that have dealt with rental inspections, which I know is getting more and more of an issue around the country. Omaha is just kind of getting into this in the last couple of years. Are you doing any type of due diligence to make sure that the properties that you're buying, especially since they're older, are to city code? I know you mentioned that you're getting inspections done on this, but how are you doing to protect yourself against, getting these crazy one-offs when it comes to these inspections?
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one. I think pretty much all my properties have had their rental inspections at this point, and we have not had issues. We've fixed things here and there. Yeah. We fixed things here and there that they've wanted us to fix, but I've found that they, mainly they want you to put the smoke detectors in every bedroom, which actually isn't code. The code is like 10 feet, I think, but fine, we'll put smoke detectors in every bedroom. But so we haven't had problems with that. I have, though, looked at properties that were recently broken up into multiple units, and I have been hesitant. I had one recently that I looked at. The numbers were great, but it was that situation where they had broken it up into 3 units and they didn't pull any permits, and I was hesitant about that. And we ultimately, I think what happens a lot is those people break them up, and the numbers do show that you can make XYZ on that, but I don't
like them.
Well, yeah, and I also think if you don't pull the permits and you're not going to do it the right way, you don't really get to sell it at the value of, a true 3 unit where you did everything. I think a lot of times they buy a single family home and then they divide it up into 3 units and they think, they should get all the value of that. Where for me, I wanted a discount to take on that risk, and they just weren't willing to give it to me. And so I walked away. I just thought that's a lot of risk for work that I just have no idea if it was really done right. I own a lot of old properties. Things when they're built need to be built to code, but the old work does not need to be brought up to code at every single second of the day, right? So when the work's done, it should be done to code. But a house that was built in 1925 does not have to follow the code for current day.
This episode is brought to you by Timber Creek Virtual.
At Timber Creek Virtual, we don't just keep your business running, we take it to the next level. Our virtual and executive assistants handle all the everyday tasks so you can focus on what really matters, growing your business. Need clarity on your financial performance? Our expert bookkeeping services keep everything organized so you always know where your business stands. Whether seamless transaction coordination, you never have to worry about the details. Just close the deal. We've got you covered with cutting-edge digital marketing, proactive lead generation, and expert acquisition management. Plus, we handle the cold calling and messaging too. Let us handle the big C part so you can handle your business. Visit timbercreekvirtual.com/services and see how we can make your business soar.
With all the fun stories that you probably have had over the years, especially with these older houses, do you have any crazy or weird investment stories that you've ran across, either with tenants or just a property?
I had one tenant, and I should say set of tenants, that they were college guys, and I had rented 3 of them. And one of them was a business major. And I don't know if you guys have ever rented to a group of tenants, but often there's kind of a lead tenant. So the lead tenant was I think, a business major, and he always wanted to negotiate with me. So when the lease came up for renewal one time, he sat me down and he was really professional, and he wanted to basically rent from me and then rent to all of his friends. He kind of wanted to run a little rooming house or something. And I said no. I said that's not how I do it. I think at one point, they had a roommate move out and then a new roommate move in, but we had documented that with the lease. But he kind of wanted to just do it, more like on the fly. And, I maybe probably would have worked with him if I had always documented the roommates moving in and out. But he wanted to study abroad that semester as well. So he wanted to enter into this lease and then go study abroad and then just, have some people in the house, which is not really how I do things. So I said no. And I said, I think you guys should just move on and move out. And so they said fine. They ended up moving out. But when we came back to clean out the property, there were 10 couches on the property. There was one in the front yard. There was one in the garage. And they were all over, everywhere. There was couches everywhere.
You always need lots of sitting space.
Yeah. And so
I'm sure they were super nice couches too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. I sold them, for a profit. No.
Love them so much.
I had to, it was expensive to remove all those, we had to do a lot of junk hauling. And the funny thing is they were not there a couple months earlier because I had come and seen the property fairly recently, but they had a big party right before they left. And I don't know if people brought their own couch or what, but it was just
It's not, bring your own beer.
Yeah. It was like red Solo cups and couches all over the properity.
I literally was at my property just checking on my 5-unit yesterday. And as I was there, I don't even remember what I was doing. I was just checking on I was replacing some batteries and some electronic locks. And all of a sudden, there's this car that's kind of blocking the parking lot. I'm like, what the heck is this? I've never seen this car before, and it's got foreign plates on it. And I just see multiple people carrying out stuff to move in. And every one of those units is an Airbnb or a midterm. And I'm like, oh, so, and I use a property manager for all the midterms. And I'm like, so what unit are you guys staying in? And they're like, oh, unit so-and-so. And this probably age badly because they'll probably listen to this. But I'm like, I go, is so-and-so not living here anymore? Oh, no, we're living together. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, so I'm just watering some plants outside, just kind of watching this go on, take a picture of it and send my property manager. I'm like, yeah, this needs to be addressed by tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They kind of look severely sketch.
Severely sketch.
And I'm like, this is just a little 2-bedroom apartment. Why are these people all moving into a 2-bedroom apartment? And there's already somebody living there, or 2 people living there. What's the story here?
Lots of couches, bro. That's how you handle that.
Well, it's all fully furnished.
Yeah,
extra couches.
Speaking of property management, would you mind briefly touching on that? How do you handle that? Are you still self-managing? It sounds like you had been, physically been over to one of the properties. Are you doing that yourself still from afar? Or do you have somebody in town that's handling that for you?
Yeah, no, I am not self-managing. I stopped doing that after I had the 2. So when I went from 2 to 7, I hired a property manager. And she's great. She does a good job, and she handles the tenant issues a lot, because that was also the biggest stressor for me, is getting the phone call that, the toilet was clogged, in the middle of the night kind of thing. That was not my favorite part of real estate investing. So she handles that. I still am pretty involved because I like to draft my own leases. I think our agreement says if it's over $500 repair, she calls me. And unfortunately, she's called a lot lately, but usually, I've had months where it's just, great. Everything's just working right how it's supposed to. So yeah, I think for me at this stage of my life, it's so great to have a property manager and take care of the day-to-day stuff.
Any tips for someone that's looking for a property manager right now? What would you mind describing briefly your process of vetting mm-hmm. and finding the right person for that?
Yeah, so she's my third. So I learned a lot of lessons with the. I'd
love to hear off air who the first 2 were too.
Well, yeah, the first one was in Denver, but it was a national chain, which I will never do again. And they were one of the ones who had the worst lease. It was so just legal jargony, but didn't even make sense to a lawyer. And they charged me for everything, and they charged the tenants for everything. They were nickel and diming us on both sides. It was horrible. And, my $500 cushion test, they ate through that in no time. And then I took it back over and self-managed, and I was back at my $500 a month. They just, anything they could charge me for. And then I found out later they were also charging the tenant for a bunch of stuff.
Full dip.
Yes,
Nice.
totally. So that was a bad experience. So I said, no more big companies. And then my second one, I went the total opposite direction. I used a woman that I think has been working in Omaha a long time, but she was very small scale. She still kept keys on like one big ring. And when we would go look at the properties, she'd have to like
Really
find
old.
it.
Really old.
Yes.
Really old. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that is.
Yeah. And so once I bought the 5-unit, she was like, this is too much for me. Like she didn't like dealing with utilities, and she was great for my single family homes, but she couldn't really like go to the next level. So my current property manager, she has, she does property management software, but she's small enough where I was like, it's very important to me to use my own lease, and she lets me do that. And, we talk pretty frequently on the phone. She's great with email because I'm a big, like, let's email if we can, not talk. So yeah, it's been a good fit. So, I think it took a while to find kind of what I liked, but for me, I wanted to control the leases. I still wanted to be pretty involved, I guess. And I think some property managers probably don't like that, but that for me was important. And she's actually very, very reasonably priced, I will say. She does a per unit fee and not a percentage. And I think it's pretty good deal.
I like that too. I have a property manager that charges. I've had both, several iterations of that, where it's a percentage, and then you get lease up fees, and you get lease renewal fees, and it's like you get feed to death on everything. And then I've had others that it's like flat. Here's it's $50 a unit or $100 or whatever the number is, and that's what you pay, and that's a lot easier to calculate and do the math on. That way, like, okay, I have 50 units, they're going to charge me $100 a unit. It's easily figure outable. Whereas if you're doing off of percentages, and then there's like, you have to do all this calculus. And if you're working with, if you self-manage some, you have a manager managing those, or another manager managing another part of your portfolio, it gets super confusing. So I like the simplicity of that.
Kaydee, how important is it to you to work with other women in this industry? There's not too many female property managers out there. And I know that you work with a lot of women in general. And I also was probably listening to your Investor podcast when it came out, on the day it came out. So I was just wondering, is that something that you seek for in your business?
It is. I try to work with women if I can. And yeah, I think we're fairly few and far between in the real estate industry. So I think, I don't know, I feel like they listen to me, and they, respect what I have to say. And not that, I've worked with some men that also do the same, but I've also worked with some men that don't do that. And I've also worked with some women that don't do that. But, I do kind of like to work with women when I can, and when, it's kind of a good fit. It often is a good fit with another woman.
All right, Kaydee, we have a question we cover in every podcast that we lovingly call
Failing Forward.
This Failing Forward is brought to you by Magic Door.
Magic Door is the AI-powered property management platform designed to handle everything from the rent cycle to the vacancy and maintenance cycles. During the rent cycle, Magic Door collects rent, sends automatic reminders, deducts management fees, and distributes payments to owners. In the vacancy cycle, Magic Door streamlines listings, tenant applications, seamless multi-language communication, screening tenants, and converting applications into leases with one click. And for the maintenance cycle, Magic Door's AI handles everything, asking tenants key questions, assigning tasks to vendors, and scheduling repairs automatically without you getting involved. With no hidden fees, no onboarding costs, and seamless AI-powered automation, Magic Door takes care of the entire property management lifecycle so you can focus on what matters most.
little acapella. Love it. Where we talk about a situation or a deal that happened to you that didn't go how you liked, and maybe some lessons along the way, problems you encountered, etc. Got anything that comes to mind like that?
Well, yeah, I think it's this year for me. I kind of
All
am.
of 2024.
Yes, honestly, it started like January 2024. The
The curse of the election season.
Yeah, before this year, I think I would have struggled to answer this question. I would have said, my real estate investments are great, and I've made really good decisions. But this year, if something bad could happen, it's happened to me. I've replaced a furnace, 2 hot water heaters. I've had 2 tenants leave, units just completely destroyed. I got hit by that storm in July. A huge tree fell on one of my properties. All of my insurance just skyrocketed, and I had to negotiate all of it, which actually turned out pretty good. But now I filed a new claim, so I'm sure I'm going to have to do that again next year too. What else? I mean, just problem after problem. Oh, I'm going to do I'm redoing a lot of the plumbing in one of my properties because we're just having a lot of trouble with hot water pressure, and we're, trying to make it better. But, I was shocked how much redoing plumbing costs. So yeah, I've just had a
if you ever need
tough
a lead,
year.
just reach out my way.
Thank you. Yeah.
I tell you what, in a real estate as an agent, this April will mark my 10th year as a real estate agent, working with investors, and every year of the election season is, it doesn't matter what side it is, just every year of the election season is the worst real estate year as a investor agent. And also being an investor, I think it's a little bit harder, and everybody kind of just backs off. So I feel you though on this year.
Yeah, it's been a tough year. So we'll see. I mean, I think everyone's dealing with the insurance stuff. I've had to replace things at properties here and there, but never like so many in one year. So yeah, I mean, I've always made money on these. I've always thought they were great investments, and I still think that, but this is going to be more like a break-even year. And hopefully, they're still appreciating. So I'm making a little bit of money in that way. But I've always been a cash flow investor. I've never invested in a property that I didn't think would cash flow. And so this year, it's not really a cash flow year.
Is this going to change how you invest? Are you strategizing or pivoting because of this?
I don't know. I mean, I just bought a new property in August. So I guess, it hasn't really deterred me. But I bought a little single family home. So my 5 unit is a lot of work. It's, lots of tenant turnover. It's older. It's conversion. It's broken up into units. But it also I've also made really good money on it when everything's working well. So it's kind of, but the single family homes, you get a great tenant in there, and they do all the maintenance, and they pay their utilities, and it's great. So I thought, maybe I should go back to kind of the basics of, where I started when I did think oh, this is easy. So that was my thought with maybe doing a single family home. It's in a nice area. It's just cute. It's something I'm really, proud to kind of rent to someone. And I think I'm proud to rent all of my properties. It's a historic home. It looks like a Sears catalog home. It's a little craftsman bungalow. So that was kind of maybe in response to that. And then I do think, I do want to buy more in Omaha, but I'm a little worried that maybe the market's getting a little saturated. My rentals are sitting a little longer, which is surprising to me. So I look around where I am, and nothing cash flows around where I am. But so, maybe that beach house is maybe I should try a short-term rental and kind of sit on my long-term rentals for a while.
I was just listening to a Grow Omaha radio podcast.
You stole my thunder, man. I was literally just going to say this.
Say it.
No, go ahead. You started.
So I don't remember the source, but we just got ranked the 7th city.
I saw that.
In rentals.
I saw that, and I'm like, but why is mine not being filled?
Kind of, yeah. In literally, we're between it was between Brooklyn and somewhere in California is where we were in our ranking, which was we're only the only Midwest city in the top 10.
Well, there goes Monday's content. I was saving this whole thing for a section on Mondays. So we do a kind of a market rundown on Mondays on our podcast, and that was going to be my topic.
We can still use it. We can still.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I saw that too. So I don't know what's going on with this one property, but
better talk to that property manager.
Yeah.
Get all her keys. Get her key ring out.
Oh, she's heard from me. She's
well, that's great. I really liked what you said there about 2024 being a break-even year. and I actually wanted to highlight that because I think when you look at this over a longer lens, longer time frame, it's very easy to get caught up in the day to day, and even like, oh, this year all this stuff happened, and it's overwhelming, and like I should just punt. But when you look at it, when you back out and zoom out, I think you can look at this and just say this is an anomaly. 2024 sucked. And by the way, I've been doing this since 2005, and this was my worst year ever in real estate for a variety of different reasons. So you're not misery loves company evidently in 2024, which kind of sucks because my favorite number is 24.
I tell you what, I've heard this from pretty much most of the people I talk to as far as their portfolios go. This has been one of the worst years in general. There's still a lot of people buying right now, and I'm not discounting that part, but just in general of tenants and everything else going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have one last section for you that we lovingly call the
OT with Owen and Ted. You are in the OT with Owen and Ted, presented by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions, we have trillions with a T to lend. 844 we close, or go online jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
Where we cover the same 5 to 6, maybe 7 questions each week with every guest. And the first one we got for you is, what is going to be the title or subject, or both, of your first book?
I think I would do, this has probably been done a million times, so I don't know if anyone's going to, really need this book, but I would do an intro to real estate book. And I think I would do something like keep it simple, or just very basic. I think my investments are, I've done them kind of the standard way, and they have, I do conventional loans. I've done some commercial loans, but I don't kind of try all the crazy strategies that a lot of people use. And that's partly because I can use some of the conventional strategies pretty easily. But I think for me, keeping it simple, buying properties kind of at a slow and steady rate has worked well. And I think a lot of people, I do this maybe 10 hours a week. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, depending on what's going on. But I think it's been a great part-time job for me, and that's really worked well. But I've not made it too complicated.
So keep it simple, stupid, investing
Let's just go keep it simple. I like, I'm a lawyer. I think I'm,
I can see you writing a book.
Smart.
I totally can see you writing a book. Just knowing you, I can see that happening.
I don't think stupid people are in a protected class. I mean, I'm no attorney, but I think we can call them.
No, that is true. I'll give you that they're not a protected class.
Okay, we are on the Kaydee Myers podcast, and I think it's called Simple Stupid Real Estate Investing. You can interview
Smart and Simple Real Estate Investing.
Smart and Simple podcast with Kaydee Myers. You can interview anyone in the world today. Who's it going to be, and what's the one question that you want to ask?
So I'm going to go with Hoda Kotb, because she just retired from the Today Show. Yeah. Yes, and I actually I start every morning with the Today Show and my coffee. Which is one of the great things about not going to a job every day, is that I can watch the news for a half hour and drink my coffee. And my college major was broadcast journalism. So that's what I thought I might do before I decided to go to law school.
So this podcast happened.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting that she decided to retire, being like the news anchor of the Today Show. And, she has little kids, and I saw a lot of like her choosing to retire, and what I've done, like, retiring from being a lawyer and just doing something kind of on a smaller scale. So I would love to ask her about that.
Retiring at the top of your game.
Yeah. It's crazy.
For that.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of retirement, this is the big retirement, also known as your funeral. Who would you think is going to be delivering your eulogy, and what do you hope they're going to say about you?
Oh, geez.
I've been looking forward to this whole time.
Yeah, I was like, this is morbid, but I definitely want my kids or my grandkids even to do my eulogy. I want to live till 100 for sure. The women in my family live a really long time, so I think that's doable. Yeah, and I just want to be known as a good mom, wife, daughter, sister, friend, and someone that was able to do, what she wanted at the same time, as being a mom.
You want a strong woman that's an icon to the other women in your family too.
Yes. Well, yeah, I hope that, my kids see what I'm doing and they're nice. They're like, Mom owns businesses. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I do.
And how old are you kids now?
They're going to be 10 in November. They're twins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's names?
Colton and Sienna.
Oh, so you have one of each.
Yep. A boy and a girl.
That's awesome. I mean, once you have the boy girl, you're like, oh, I don't need any more.
Yeah, they're great. They're so fun. They're at a fun age.
That's awesome. My kids are right between, I guess, 7 and 11, so I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I like this stage better than the little kid stage.
If you could look at your life in general, in total, and think about all the mentors that you've had, that's helped you get to where you're at now, what's the one mentor that really stands out to you, and how they impacted your personal growth in either business or your life?
Yeah, mine would definitely have to be my mom. She started a business when I was younger, when she had 4 kids, and she was recently divorced. She started a travel agency in Omaha. It's called Enchanted Travel. And she really built it from the ground up. And then when she got remarried, my stepdad helped her a lot, and he's a great businessman as well. But my mom's a really great businesswoman.
It's here in Omaha.
Yeah, it's called Enchanted Travel. My brother just bought it from her and my dad, so he's running it now, and they're retired.
We've only used Enchanted Travel for our travel agency, just so you know.
Really? Oh, good. Yeah, they're great. Me too. But yeah, so
I had no idea.
My mom built that company, and before that, she had actually. I come from a lot of entrepreneurs. Actually, I have uncles and aunts that have started small companies all over. But yeah, she worked from home before it was like cool to work from home, because she just had an office in her bedroom. So she was home when we got home from school, but she, was working away, and she was really always there kind of as a mom as well. So she kind of showed me that you can do both, and she just has a great business sense. So she's just very smart in that way. And we still kind of run ideas off each other. She asks me about real estate all the time. And I ask her about stuff all the time. And my parents are very helpful. They'll run over to the properties and take pictures and do a few things for me here and there. So it's great to have family that both understands about building a business, but will also help you out.
So my in-laws suggested them when we were doing our honeymoon.
Oh, good. Yes.
So they did their whole honeymoon, and then every vacation we've had since we've used Enchanted Travel. So that's a fun connection.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Kaydee, last question for you in the OT is, how can our listeners support you, and what's the best way to reach out to you, or do you want to be reached out to? I should ask that first.
That's a funny way to put it. Yes. So I do, probably the most public facing thing I do is I do Instagram, and it's at Walkable Real Estate. And I put my stuff about my investment properties on there. I also comment on kind of like land use planning issues, sometimes in Arlington, sometimes in Omaha. I'm very interested in historic preservation, so I put a lot of stuff like that on there. And then we actually have, we didn't touch on this, but we've renovated our personal home top to bottom, and I have a lot of stuff about that on there. So that's probably the easiest way. And, it's not a massive Instagram following. So, if people want to message me on there, I'm definitely the person who responds.
Perfect. Well, we added you on our Instagram, and we'll tag this episode on there to try to build that up a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, Kaydee, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And, I was so excited when you got to invest her. I'm like, I know her. I've worked with her. and with, putting that all together and then taking the opportunity to come on here. And it's so awesome to talk to successful women in this industry that are absolutely killing it and that know what you know. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be our go-to caller for when we have real estate legal questions on the podcast. We might have to
Yeah.
bring you in like what's that show with the
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You're gonna be our call-in person.
Yeah, I would love that. I always say I am a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. So I like to talk about the legal issue, but I'm not giving anyone legal advice.
Good disclaimer. I like it.
Yeah.
They just did our follow there too. And so when you get a chance, definitely if you're willing to share that any of those lease information, please share that with us because Owen is already kicking me about getting that information.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll email you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, with that, Owen Dashner, we see us out.
On behalf of RIA Radio, Aiden Bear, and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Kaydee. Couch surfers are my favorite tenants. Myers. Signing off. Well, we've got Kaydee. We've got one last section for you here, where we throw some questions at you that every guest gets each week. And the first one that we've got for you. Oh, wait, this is my bad.
You gotta get a title. Yeah.
All right,
radio in it. Start it.
This section we call.
I would just do that whole section over again. Radio edit. There we go.
Such a perfectionist. You should be an attorney.